Hi everyone, my name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach and one of the authors of this amazing book, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care, 25 Tools for Goddesses. And I'm excited because today I get to read the chapter that I wrote. Oh my goodness, I lost the page. There it is, right here. Chapter 17. You can see the title there. It's called Shadow Spotting, a Tool for Soul Illumination and Liberation. And I'm actually going to read it from my screen because I don't want to be looking down as I do this. But this is a really, really fabulous book. I mean, there are so many amazing stories in there, and I really hope that you'll take the time to go and pick up a copy over at Amazon. You can find the links in the description of this video. So why don't I just go ahead and get started, and I will just kind of go with the flow and we'll see what happens. So let me get my page. There we are. All right, chapter 17, Shadow Spotting, a Tool for Soul Illumination and Liberation by David D. McLeod. All right, we start with, let me get this. My story. I stood with 25 other people around the outer edge of the carpet. I was pumped with energy because I knew that today would be a very powerful and special day. This carpet is sacred space. The facilitator stood in the center, turning slowly to address everyone. He spoke solemnly and reverently. Many have come before you, he continued. They stepped into the center, declared what they were here to do, and then broke themselves open to reveal and to seize the gold and the beauty within. Today, if you choose, you will have the opportunity to do the same. He paused to allow his words to take root in our hearts. This is serious work, my friends, perhaps the most important you will ever do. If you take this opportunity, you will come away transformed. Your life will change in ways you cannot even imagine right now. You all came here for a reason. Your minds might not know that reason, but your hearts have no doubt that you are here to reclaim something that you left behind long ago. My body was ringing like a bell. I could feel the energy swimming through me, and I just wanted to leap into the center of the carpet and do my work. Tears began to flow out of me as the facilitator spoke. He wasn't done yet. People have cried their eyes out on this carpet to get what they came for. People have emptied their guts on this carpet to get what they came for. People have cracked their hearts wide open on this carpet to get what they came for. People have bled on this carpet to get what they came for. He paused again for effect. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "You can pass if you choose. And believe me, there is no shame in passing. I ask only that you let your heart make the choice, not your mind. For your heart knows the truth about who you really are and why you are here." The more I listened to his words, the stronger I felt about stepping out. I couldn't wait any longer. I could barely contain myself. Who will be the first one on the carpet today? He asked. But suddenly I felt completely frozen, as if cement encased my entire body. Everything seemed to slow down, and I watched helplessly as one of the other participants moved tentatively into the middle of the carpet. As powerful, deep work unfolded, I became mesmerized. I watched person after person take center stage, do some amazing healing work, and then, about 20 to 30 minutes later, march off the carpet like a completely changed being. Each participant seemed to transform from a weak and frail shell into an empowered and unstoppable force that now had a true purpose for being. It was magical. It was beyond amazing. It was transcendent. After about 10 people were complete, I began to feel my muscles loosening again. but my heart told me to wait a while longer. Apparently, my earlier impetuous desire to get it over with was completely counterproductive, and my heart had held me back from making a big mistake. By slowing down and witnessing other people going into their darkness and coming out the other side, shining like blazing suns, I was able to connect to each person in the most spiritual sense of oneness I have ever experienced. As it turned out, this delay contributed to one of the most profound experiences in my life. At last, my turn came. I took my place in the center of the carpet. The ringing and buzzing in my body had long since vanished, and I was entirely present for the moment, with no expectation and no agenda. The facilitator was masterful in his guidance, and I trusted him completely, as I had never trusted anyone before. He asked questions to get some context of what was going on for me, but those questions didn't matter because they were just a vehicle to get me to begin feeling the emotions inside me that I had kept hidden away for so long. And then it happened. A dormant volcano within me suddenly exploded, and hot, blood-red rage just spewed out of me. Screaming, cursing, raving. I felt the handle of a tennis racket suddenly appear in my palm, and I immediately began pounding a pile of pillows in front of me. But I did not see pillows. I saw mother, father, bosses, associates, priests, leaders, and yes, even God, all of whom I had unconsciously held responsible for the current state of my life. I kept pounding and raging until I could barely move. My voice was a hoarse whisper, and my inner volcano had emptied itself. I remember saying that I just wanted someone to love me for who I am. And from out of nowhere, a person came to my side and assumed the role of my ideal mother and held me in the most loving way I could ever have imagined. And that's when the tears came. My body shivered and shook with uncontrollable sobbing. My ideal mom repeated words like, "I love you so much, and you are my amazing and beautiful boy." So much stuff came out of my nose and eyes and mouth, I could not believe it. After a while, the emotional energy subsided, and I was spent like a sponge squeezed completely dry. But there was an indescribable peace within me, and when I stood up, a surge of power blossomed within me like a flame of gold and blue. I put my hands on my chest, and I smiled softly and effortlessly. I could not believe how amazing and alive I felt. The facilitator stood in front of me with a huge grin and asked me a very simple question. "And what is true about you right now, David, in this moment?" Despite my raspy throat, I summoned enough power to declare, "I am a divine being of boundless light and love, and I'm here to make the world a better place for everyone." The people standing around the carpet erupted into cheering and applause, and I felt immense gratitude billowing in my heart. In the beginning, I had been worried that if I revealed my inner darkness, people would hate me and judge me and spurn me, and that I'd be left alone to die in the wilderness. But the exact opposite happened. Instead of condemning me, here they were celebrating me and what I had done. At that moment, everything shifted. I felt such love for everyone, including myself, and I knew that I would never again hide my feelings or my truth. I knew that no matter what happened in my life going forward, I would never again deny the truth of who I am. Wow. To please anyone else. My life would never be the same. As a result of this powerful experience, I have learned several things that have guided my life ever since. 1. I am not who I think I am. Rather, I am a boundless expression of the divine, engaged in a temporary journey in the physical world. 2. In my human journey, I experience both the physical and the spiritual at different times. When I occasionally forget about my spiritual nature, I slip into the unconsciousness of ego, which sees me as limited and weak. My ego mind encourages me constantly to hide aspects of myself that it judges as defective, inappropriate, unacceptable, bad, or wrong. After all, if no one sees these parts of me, I can be welcomed into society. 3. Ego mind experiences lead to the emergence of shadows in my psyche. That is, aspects of myself that I have disowned, hidden, or repressed because of my ego mind's judgments about them. These shadows have a disempowering influence on my life, keeping me from expressing and experiencing all of who I am. And 4, to transform my life and rise above my limiting beliefs, I must uncover, illuminate, heal, and integrate these shadows. In other words, I must recover the parts of myself that I have hidden away and heal them so that I can transform their dysfunctional behaviors into energies that positively serve me in the future. I was deeply inspired by my own visceral experience and by what I witnessed in the other participants. This led me to spend several years studying the darker side of the human condition. In the process, I learned powerful facilitation techniques to help people investigate this side of themselves, to discover gifts and capabilities they didn't know or forgot they had. I now understand that every human deals with psychic shadow, individual instances of which can be traced back to disempowering beliefs that arose out of psychological or spiritual wounding, most commonly in connection with unpleasant events during childhood. But shadow is not something to be feared and avoided, as I used to believe. On the contrary, intentional investigation of your shadow can help you to reconnect to natural gifts that may have been hidden, along with aspects or behaviors that childhood caregivers didn't like. Indeed, in my opinion, illuminating shadow is one of the most powerful pathways back to your natural divinity. Whew. Well, thank you for bearing with me for the emotional part of that story. Now let me share with you the tool that I wrote about. So this technique is a relatively gentle way to help you spot your shadow and then do some deep introspection to help you understand what it is trying to do for you. Part 1, shadow spotting. Because shadow behaviors often happen unconsciously, positively identifying a shadow can be challenging. It's like trying to find a subatomic particle. You probably can't see it directly, but because it always leaves a trail, you know where it's been. After much study, I've identified 6 high-level classes of behavior that seem to identify a shadow. The first of these is acting out. This can show up in many ways, from active forms like temper tantrums or china smashing rages, to more passive forms like whining or sulking or slinking out of sight. Number 2, triggers and emotional charges. If you experience that someone or something pushes your buttons, you will probably have some internal emotional reaction. When such a trigger is fired, you may react physically, possibly to the point of moving into acting out behavior. 3, judgments and projections. Everyone has judgments, virtually all the time. But when the judgments elevate to the point of evaluating someone else critically, negatively, or harshly, it may result from a triggering event and lead to a verbal assault or worse, another form of acting out. 4th, compensatory behaviors. These are behaviors we learn when we are young that help us to protect ourselves from emotional pain. For example, if you are constantly told you never get it right, then you may find yourself striving to become a perfectionist. Or if you were raised in an environment where everybody talks over everyone else, you might come to believe that nobody ever hears me, and so you compensate by becoming a shouter or a loudmouth just because you want to be heard. 5, ego defenses. Whenever you are faced with stressful situations, your ego mind looks for ways to keep you safe. This sometimes results in defensive strategies such as denial, dissociation, conversion, or minimization. And 6, rigid beliefs. If you believe something strongly, regardless of whether it is true or false, your ego mind will always find ways to make you right about that belief and make others wrong about their contrary position. So take some time to review some of your recent behaviors. Do any of them fall into one of the categories mentioned here? If so, you have probably identified one of your shadows, and you can take some time to interview that part of yourself to find out what it's trying to accomplish in your life. And so this leads to part 2 of the process, shadow interviewing. To do a successful interview, you will need a quiet space to set up 2 chairs facing each other, about 2 feet apart. Designate one of the chairs the interviewer chair and designate the other the shadow chair. Make sure you have a journal and pen available and place them on the interviewer chair. Prepare your space by lighting some candles and, if you like, burning some incense. Set the room lighting low enough to feel comfortable but bright enough that you can still see what you are doing. Stand in the center of the space between the 2 chairs with your hands on your heart. Close your eyes and take several deep breaths. When you feel ready, say the following words and feel free to adjust to your sense of what needs to be said. I come here in vulnerability and openness to heal myself so that I can know the truth of who I am. I call upon God, Supreme Consciousness, Spirit, Krishna, whatever you choose, to join me in this space and provide guidance, love, protection, and wisdom as I connect with my shadow to create integration and healing. I am grateful to have you with me on this journey. Feel free to repeat this mantra or prayer meditation as many times as you like. Take a few more deep breaths. Open your eyes and take your place in the interviewer chair. Now recall the behavior that you noted from part 1 of this exercise. For the sake of this example, suppose you were having some intense negative judgments about your friend Bob. Then begin the interview by speaking into the empty room. It might go something like this. The other day I found myself thinking some pretty awful things about Bob. He had made a sexist comment about my sister, and I was stunned. I think he thought it was a joke, but it really stung me, and I had a hard time stopping myself from slapping his face. I remember thinking that he was such a pig, and I just wanted to roast him on a spit. Of course, the details of your initial confession will be different, but you get the idea. Continue with the following words. I invite that part of myself that had such a strong reaction to come forward and have a conversation with me. I just want to speak with you to understand more about what is going on. You will feel a shift in your body when that part of yourself is ready to be present. Don't rush it. Let it happen in its own time. Even though you won't be able to see this part of yourself, recognize that it is still here and invite it to sit in the shadow chair. Use your imagination to visualize this part sitting across from you. There's a good chance you will recognize yourself as a small child, so be gentle and compassionate as you begin your interview. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm really glad you decided to come. Imagine the responses from your shadow and take the time to write them down in your journal. Here are some questions you can ask that your shadow will most likely be delighted to answer for you. What was it exactly that got you so angry when Bob made that joke about my sister? Did this remind you of something that happened to you when you were a child? If so, what was that? What did you hope to accomplish with your reactive behavior? Somewhere along the way, you will very likely find that your shadow will admit to trying to protect you from being hurt. When you get to this point, try to shift your questions to understand more about the intent behind the behavior. Specifically, try to determine what the shadow wants for itself. For example, you might say, "I'm honored that you are trying to protect me. Thank you so much. But I'm curious, if you knew I was safe and protected, then what would you have for yourself that you really want?" By expressing compassion and gratitude, you deepen your understanding of the shadow's ultimate purpose in your life. If you continue with this line of questioning, eventually you'll discover that your shadow is trying to create one of the following for you: being, serenity, oneness, or love. All of these are just different expressions of the divine, aren't they? And that is ultimately what your shadow is trying to create for you: a deeper connection to your divine nature. The only problem is that the shadow may have an immature and possibly dysfunctional way of creating that. So to end the interview, you can say something like the following: "Thank you so much for everything you do for me. I'm so grateful to have you in my life, and I want to work with you going forward. I am an adult now with adult powers and capabilities, so I know how to handle things these days. From now on, you tell me if I missed something, and I'll take it from there. And in return, I promise to love you and keep you safe." Is that a deal? When you believe the interview is complete, close the session by inviting your shadow to resume its rightful place in your heart. Then stand up and give thanks to the spiritual entity you invited at the start. Wrap yourself in a big, loving hug and revel in the knowledge that you are truly a divine being in every sense of the word. So take a deep breath and just notice what you're feeling right now after I've read that chapter. There's a lot of depth to this, and the idea of being afraid of shadow is very common. Almost all of us try to hide those parts of ourselves that we believe other people will not like. And that includes parts of ourselves that are actually quite beautiful and quite amazing. You may have even heard when you were trying to play music as a kid, for example, maybe you didn't get the notes quite right or something, and so your mom or your dad or some other caregiver made a negative comment that made you decide that you didn't like music anymore. You know? Anything like that can happen, and it almost always happens to us when we're children. And so I think this is an important process, an important opportunity for you and for everyone to really, really connect to that amazing, beautiful, fantastic, magnificent, divine nature that you were born with and that you may have forgotten about. And one of the fastest ways to get there that I know of is to invite in those dark parts that may not have seemed to be very, very helpful in the past. I assure you, they're actually trying to do something great for you. Well, that's all I have for today. I want to just thank you so much for being here and for joining me today. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I wasn't really paying attention to the comments. It's nice to see you, Anna and Emily and Nicole, and I don't know who else is here. But I just want to thank you all for being here. And I'll just say, if you want to connect with me more about this, please just feel free to reach out. I'm here on Facebook, and I have my own website at Your Life Mastery Coach. Just reach out. I believe you'll be glad you did. Anyway, thank you all. I love you, and I wish you all the very best. Have a fabulous rest of your day. Bye-bye.